Direct from our newsroom in New York, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. And Eric Severide in Paris, Adam Rayfield in Paris, Bill Stout in Los Angeles, Robert Pierpoint in San Clemente, California, John Lawrence in New York, Foster Davis in Montgomery, Alabama, Bob Schieffer in Washington, and Gary Shepard in Nha Trang, South Vietnam.
Good evening. This was the first full business day in international money markets since France devalued its franc 12.5%, and the new franc came through the day with flying colors. Fears have been expressed in some quarters that devaluation would touch off new panic and feverish dealings in other Western currencies, but this just did not materialize. In the London market, the pound held up well, closing an insignificant fraction below its opening price. The West German mark is expected advanced, but only a fraction. And in the city where it all started, we have a report now from Adam Rayfield in Paris.
Devaluation, a price freeze, and then austerity measures. This is the program with which the government hopes to restore faith in the franc and bring the French economy back on its feet.
Here at the Bourse, the Paris Stock and Gold Exchange had passed its first test today. From the floor, the government seemed to receive a strong vote of confidence. It was the first day of trading since devaluation, and dealers, wrenched from their vacations, crowded in to sell gold and buy stocks in French export firms. Prices jumped 10 to 20%, a very firm market, though economists predict that they will taper off. The question is whether or not this newfound trust in the franc can be maintained. The present euphoria may well turn to crisis. France is largely dependent on imports, from cars to coffee, all 12.5% more from now on. As a result, a rise in the cost of living up to 3.5% is forecast. Labor leaders are already complaining of loss of purchasing power at a time when the government is promising bitter reforms, including cutbacks in public spending, especially in wage increases. There will also be cutbacks in farm subsidies. A price freeze on fruits and vegetables will last until September 15th to tide the government over the planning stage and forestall angry farmers. For now, France is closed for its annual vacation, a breathing space for the government to work out its new policies without too much opposition. That will come later. The Prime Minister has said he will risk a crisis to put through necessary reforms. As it is, the government is assured of popularity with one group at least, the tourists, whose travelers' checks are suddenly worth 1/8 more than before. Adam Rayfield, CBS News, Paris.
In contrast to the hectic trading on the Paris Bourse, the New York Stock Exchange experienced its lowest volume in 2 years, as only 6,700,000 shares were traded. Brokers attributed the low volume in part, at least, to investor caution following the devaluation of the franc. The Dow Jones averages were generally lower. The New York Exchange Index lost 26 cents. The American Exchange Index was off 11 cents.
Someday, you'll probably smoke a cigarette that looks and tastes this way. But why put it off? True is here today. Do it. Discover what True can do. Discover how True can satisfy you. Satisfy you with good taste. Satisfy you with an air filtration system and built-in mouthpiece. Satisfy you with reduced tar and nicotine. Don't put it off. Don't put off till someday what you can smoke today. More and more smokers are enjoying True every day. Shouldn't you? Shouldn't your brand be True today?
The heaviest fighting since mid-June is reported in Vietnam, and a new enemy offensive is predicted. In a series of small actions throughout Vietnam, enemy troops killed at least 38 Americans and wounded 144 others. And that's the highest U.S. toll for a 24-hour period since June 18th, when the lull in fighting began. The enemy lost 152 killed. At the same time, U.S. military spokesman said there are signs the enemy is preparing for a fall campaign to begin later this month. The so-called Green Beret murder case produced a few added details today. Attorney George Gregory of Cheraw, South Carolina, charged that the Vietnamese allegedly killed by 8 Green Beret members was a double agent employed by both the United States and North Vietnamese intelligence. Gregory represents one of the accused, Major Thomas Middleton. Gregory said the alleged agent was wrongfully entrusted with valuable information, and his death saved hundreds or thousands of American lives. The Army declined comment on these latest developments, maintaining its refusal to discuss the case. Gary Shepard reports from Nha Trang.
One of the tightest security lids in recent memory continues to shroud the Green Beret murder case. Except for the initial announcement that 8 members of the American Special Forces organization here are under arrest for the murder of a Vietnamese national, military authorities have been silent. In fact, a number of Green Berets here say they've been threatened with arrest and imprisonment if they talk. The new commander of Special Forces, Colonel Alexander Lembers, denies that such an order was given. Colonel, have members of your command been told not to discuss the Green Beret murder case?
Members of my command have not been told by me to not discuss this allegation.
Have they been told by anyone?
To my knowledge, no one has told them, and further, I do not believe that anybody in the command has any knowledge of this allegation.
Colonel, you came here a few weeks ago. Were you told anything about the case?
I have not been told anything about the case, and I have not inquired into it.
But CBS News has learned the following details from reliable sources. Except for former Green Beret commander Colonel Robert Rote, all of the defendants were assigned to the intelligence branch of Special Forces, and all were based at Green Beret headquarters here in Nha Trang. Major Thomas Middleton, for example, held an important post on the intelligence staff known as S2. 2 of the captains under arrest held similar positions. One of them was in the counterintelligence division. The other was known as a case officer. The warrant officer was assigned to a separate military intelligence detachment. The 3 remaining defendants are a major, a captain, and a sergeant. These men are part of a super-secret unit whose mission is highly classified. The most prevalent theory about the case is that whatever happened on the 20th of June involved a highly secret and well-planned assassination that somehow backfired. And the men are now being sacrificed to avoid serious political repercussions. Gary Shepard, CBS News, at Special Forces Headquarters, Nha Trang, South Vietnam.
There was another racial brawl at an American military base over the weekend, this time at the Marine Corps Air Station at Kaneohe, Hawaii. Some 250 blacks and whites were involved in the incident, which wasn't brought under control until a military policeman fired shots into the air. 16 Marines were injured, none seriously. There also were reports of racial fights at Fort Bragg, North Carolina over the weekend, but base officials say that the worst fight, involving 200 men, was not a racial incident. For the second time in 2 weeks, Israeli planes bombed Arab guerrilla camps in Lebanon today. A number of persons were reported wounded, some seriously. The attack occurred in the Mount Hermon area of southeastern Lebanon, site of an Israeli raid on July 30th. According to an Israeli announcement, today's raid was in retaliation for 21 terrorist acts carried out from Lebanese territory last month. In the Lebanese capital of Beirut, a Lebanese university professor today accused Israel of mass killings and torture in the occupied Arab territories. Dr. George Deeb made the charge before a UN investigating committee. Deeb claimed that in one instance, Israelis shot and killed 23 Arab men in retaliation for the death of 3 Israeli soldiers.
Oh, my dressmaker says it isn't quite me, but the collar goes with almost... Oh, anything?
When spots happen, be ready with Texize K2R, world's first spot lifter. Rub K2R into the spot. Let it dry completely to a powder. Then brush away the powder. K2R lifts the spot clean out, never leaves a ring. The spot remover that works. Texize K2R. Spray can, too, for big spots.
This kitchen prepares thousands of meals each day. It's a cleanup job for experts. They use an industrial strength cleaner, far stronger than any cleaner now in your home. Unless you've discovered new Janitor in a Drum from Texize, the same industrial strength cleaner used by experts. It lets you tackle tough jobs and big jobs that used to take forever. New Janitor in a Drum, first industrial strength cleaner for home use.
Los Angeles police today released caretaker William Garretson in the deaths of actress Sharon Tate and 4 other persons. The 19-year-old Garretson underwent a lie detector test and extensive questioning before being released because of a lack of evidence. He was the only person found alive at Miss Tate's estate Saturday when the bodies were discovered. Detectives today were investigating the murder of 2 other persons who were found last night in bizarre circumstances similar to the Tate killings. Bill Stout reports.
While the police admitted they had no suspects in the Bel Air massacre, There were 2 more murders 15 miles away in the Silver Lake section of Los Angeles. Market owner Leo LaBianca and his wife Rosemary were found by their children stabbed and mutilated. There were parallels between this and the Bel Air murders. The word war was carved into LaBianca's chest, and death to pigs was smeared on a refrigerator door in the blood of one of the victims. The word pig had been scrawled in blood on the door of the Bel Air mansion, where actress Sharon Tate and 4 others were slain, but police said, despite the similarities, they do not believe the crimes are linked. Related, perhaps, in that the second murderer may have acted on the basis of the Bel Air publicity, related in that publicity sense, perhaps, but not linked in the opinion of the police, and there is no suggestion the same person or persons committed both crimes. That power of suggestion possibility was raised by a psychiatrist often appointed by the courts in criminal matters, Dr. Frederick Hacker.
The first thing to note is that they usually occur in a series. And even the papers report that the police feels it could be a copycat. And that is certainly a very important aspect, namely this contagion factor. Usually violence is extremely contagious, and some of these more spectacular crimes that are spectacularly reported by the mass media form a kind of a model that then very easily is imitated, so that very frequently some of these violent crimes occur in series that where one takes the former crime for a model.
With 7 persons dead, 2 here, 5 in and outside a Bel Air mansion, police and psychiatrists alike are speculating on the truth of George Bernard Shaw's words many years ago that murder breeds murder. Bill Stout, CBS News, Los Angeles.
President Nixon asked Congress today to restructure the nation's welfare system, building it on the base of an annual minimum income for the poor. He urged quick action on his $4 billion proposal, which incorporates features designed to encourage the poor to get and keep jobs as they work themselves up and off of federal assistance. Mr. Nixon also announced changes in the Office of Economic Opportunity. Our report from his vacation headquarters in California with Robert Pierpoint.
The California White House covers about the same area that the White House in Washington does, but it's not all under one roof. The president and his family live in a 5-bedroom Spanish-style home overlooking the Pacific just behind us here. It cost them $340,000. In the morning, when the president comes to work, he comes down this road and onto a compound of offices here right next door. This used to be a Coast Guard Loran station of 2 small buildings, but in the past couple of months, 3 more buildings have been added for White House offices. President Nixon's first meeting today in his new office was with the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, Donald Rumsfeld. Later today, the president met with Secretary of State William Rogers, who reported on a 2-week tour of Asia he's just completed. Rogers went to countries President Nixon could not visit to explain the new Nixon administration foreign policy. The president is saving his afternoons for relaxation at the beach just below his house here. Mr. Nixon plans to try some surfing with son-in-law David Eisenhower, provided, of course, the Secret Service will let him. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News, at the California White House in San Clemente.
Congressman Wright Patman, the influential Texas Democrat, urged the government today to demand immediate repayment of an $80,000 loan to Bebe Rebozo, Miami millionaire and friend of President Nixon. The loan, made in 1962 during the Kennedy administration, is only one of Rebozo's dealings with the Small Business Administration, which have recently come in for critical scrutiny. Patman charged that time and time again Rebozo has received special favors from the SBA, and in this particular case got the loan even though several SBA officials had recommended against it. In addition, the repayment date has been twice postponed. The Senate today unanimously approved new controls on the development, deployment, and testing of weapons for gas and germ warfare. Among other things, the legislation would forbid open-air testing of chemical or biological weapons, except upon approval of the Surgeon General and Secretary of Defense and advance notification of 6 congressional committees. In spite of Senate opposition, the Nixon administration recently renewed the leases to U.S. air bases in Spain. Today it was reported that the Pentagon is planning to increase its air strength there, a move likely to provoke more criticism in Congress. The report said the plan involves sending 72 new F-4 Phantom jet fighters to Spain to replace 54 older F-100s.
about? I found out I have iron-poor blood.
Iron-poor blood could be your problem, too. So don't be sad. Be glad for Geritol. Geritol iron enters your bloodstream fast, carrying its high-potency iron throughout your body. Just 2 Geritol tablets contain twice the iron in a pound of calf's liver, plus 7 vitamins for nutrition.
Hello. Well, first time I've seen you smile in weeks. I've been taking Geritol.
Check with your doctor, and if iron-poor blood is your problem, don't be sad. Be glad for Geritol. Geritol builds high-potency iron in your blood. Try it.
Awake half the night? Don't toss and turn half the night. Take Somonex for a full night's sleep. Somonex gives you 3, not 1 or 2, but 3 ingredients for a full night's sleep.
Take Somonex tonight and sleep safe and restful. Sleep, sleep, sleep.
Take 2 Somonex tablets and sleep.
Astronauts Neil Armstrong, Mike Collins, and Buzz Aldrin had a day off today and returned to such everyday earthly chores as going to the bank and checking in to see what's new at the office. But starting tomorrow, they will not be able to avoid the spotlight. At 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, they will hold a news conference and tell the world what it was like to walk on the moon. CBS will broadcast that news conference live. And then on Wednesday, a grateful nation will pay homage with ticker-tape parades in New York and Chicago, climaxed by a dinner in Los Angeles hosted by President Nixon. That unmanned Russian spaceship, Zone 7, is headed back toward Earth tonight, having looped the moon and taken pictures of the lunar surface. It never entered lunar orbit. In Washington tomorrow, Senator Gaylord Nelson's subcommittee resumes hearings on the experimental testing of new drugs. One name that's expected to come up at the hearings is that of Dr. Austin Stow. CBS News correspondent John Lawrence has a report on Dr. Stow and his unusual occupation.
Dr. Austin Stow of Montgomery, Alabama, is one of the country's most active and financially successful practitioners in the open and virtually unregulated field of testing experimental drugs on prison volunteers. He is also currently at the center of a medical scandal involving not only his methods, but also the entire practice of testing new drugs for human use. Dr. Stow has operated in the prison systems of several states. This is Kilby Prison in Alabama, where Dr. Stow has been active for almost 7 years. But now he is being evicted from Alabama because of a critical report from the Alabama Medical Association.
We did feel that circumstances, medical supervision of the prisoners who were being subjected to drug tests.
If the medical society is correct, if the drug tests on the Alabama prisoners was not supervised properly, then who's to blame for that condition? And what does it mean about the safety of drugs bought by the American public? It seemed that a key person to ask would be Dr. Stow himself.
Is Dr. Stow there, please? Yeah, this is Foster Davis, CBS again.
CBS newsman Foster Davis tried repeatedly to interview Dr. Stow with no success. Other reporters have had the same experience.
He's leaving town?
Dr. Stow was not available. Not in his home near Montgomery. Not at the office of his firm, Southern Food and Drug Research. Dr. Stow is rarely photographed these days. But the doctor, seen here on the left, was photographed for a 21st Century broadcast 2 years ago while helping conduct research on a male birth control pill. The research was designed by physiologist John McLeod of Cornell Medical Center, who is also shown in these films. Here, they discuss a prison volunteer.
Austin, have you seen any signs, overt signs of feminization in any of these subjects during the study?
No, we have examined them very frequently, and we found nothing. We have run many laboratory tests, and there has been no physiological change.
No physiological change at all.
At least one doctor who has worked with Dr. Stow in the past believes the doctor has been maligned. It is argued that his scientific procedures are sound, that problems arise because of the nature of prisons. And perhaps this is a good point for the question, why test drugs in prison anyway? There are powerful reasons for doing so. The first phase of testing on humans must be done on healthy subjects to test for side effects. Prisons provide large numbers of healthy subjects in a controlled environment with adequate numbers of volunteers. But there are problems as well. Many other drugs circulate in prison.
and many prisoners volunteer only for the money. It makes some of them reluctant to report adverse effects for fear they'll miss more money. Foster Davis talked with some of the convicts at Draper Prison in Alabama.
How much are you paid for taking part in the program?
Well, I don't know exactly how much we're paid. We draw $16 every 2 weeks.
What are you able to earn as a prisoner if you're not taking part in the drug program?
50 cents every 3 weeks.
If you report a problem in the drug program, do you stop taking the pills?
If it's serious to do.
And do you then stop getting paid?
Yes. You get paid up to what you've been on the program.
And you don't get paid if you say you're sick and you have to stop taking the pills?
No, sir.
Have you ever heard of prisoners taking part in the drug program who didn't take the pills?
Yeah, I've seen several of them that didn't take them.
Why don't they take them?
Well, my ideas about it, they wanted to get on the pill program for the money, but for us taking the pill, they didn't want it.
Because they were scared of the pills?
Well, not the matter they were scared of them. I don't guess they just didn't want it.
Well, how would they avoid taking them?
Well, they'd put them on the tongue and probably put them in the hand like they put them in the mouth and throw them away.
How often did this happen?
Well, I guess it's been going on ever since it's been a pill program.
Does it still happen?
Sometime.
There have been other criticisms of Dr. Stow, charges that he's been allowed into prisons by putting prison doctors on his payroll, charges that an epidemic of hepatitis broke out during his plasma programs a few years ago, resulting in the deaths of several convicts. And now the question of whether these tests in Alabama gave accurate results. The Food and Drug Administration is reviewing those charges. Dr. Robert Quinnell of the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association talked with reporter Bob Schieffer.
Testing has already become data, I understand.
That's true.
Does that concern you that perhaps those tests...
Oh, it certainly does. If these tests are not valid, then the drugs that were dependent upon these tests for continued tests are very much in doubt. And we certainly would want to do it over again if the drugs had, gone far enough along to indicate that we want to continue with them. No, this would be really bad news if, in fact, these things were not done accurately.
It should be noted that medical tests in prison are only the first step in a series of checks on humans before new drugs are approved for use by the American public. But the prison tests are first, and the question is, who's responsible for making certain they are proper tests? The Food and Drug Administration believes that under the present law, the responsibility rests with the major drug companies, not the government. Some members of Congress feel that in the light of the case of Dr. Stow, that is not enough. John Lawrence, CBS News, New York.
The National Broadcasting Company today rejected a tobacco industry proposal to cancel all cigarette commercials beginning next year. The American Broadcasting Company previously rejected the proposal. CBS said yesterday it would go along with the plan if Congress so desires. The broadcast industry already has agreed to voluntarily phase out cigarette commercials starting next year. The government today cut wheat allotments for the 1970 crop to the lowest level ever under the federal support program, 45.5 million acres. It's an effort to reduce grain surpluses. The cut amounts to a total allotment 12% below this year's, but the basic wheat price support will continue to be $1.25 a bushel.
Did you know that Colgate toothpaste with MFP fluoride actually makes tooth enamel stronger so children can have less cavities? Well, it does. Only Colgate has MFP fluoride. This toothpaste actually makes tooth enamel stronger. Now, children should have less cavities, so get some. Colgate with MFP fluoride. They'll love it because it tastes good, too.
If you've got one this age, you need handy wipes all over the house. Those messy fingerprints. Handy wipes are a must in here. Just perfect for wiping up and strong for scrubbing off. In the kitchen at mealtime, they're a real help. So soft and wonderfully absorbent. See? And they rinse out clean and fresh. After a hard week's work, some handy wipes have had it. But these others, I'll use again. Try handy wipe at any age.
Eric Severide is in Paris. Tonight he has some thoughts on the role that men and events are playing in the shaping of present-day Europe.
The people of France, having just got rid of General de Gaulle, their most reasonable facsimile of Napoleon Bonaparte, now find themselves fascinated all over again with the story of Bonaparte, whose 200th birthday anniversary occurs this week. Books, articles, souvenirs, and exhibitions about Napoleon seem to festoon most of Paris. Not that they hanker for another Napoleon. It's just that those rare men who make history are more interesting to most people than those periods of history that make men. Europe and the West generally are living such a period now. Small, historically rather normal events convulse some people almost as if an army had crossed a frontier. France has just had a relatively minor devaluation of its currency. No one can possibly be sure how good or bad for economic Europe this is going to turn out to be. But the story dominates the papers and the broadcasts from Scotland to Sicily. Events are in the saddle these days, not Bonaparte's or de Gaulle's, or for that matter, not Khrushchev, Johnson's, Adenauer's, or Macmillan's. To observers here, the Nixons, Wilsons, Kissingers, Kosygin's, and Pompidou's look like a very different breed, all alike in some ways, careful managers, not prime movers of events. They are projecting no great designs, calling up no stirring visions. Few echoes are heard of John Kennedy's Atlantic interdependence theme, and the dream of united Europe seems reduced to the ledgers and the trading charts of the common market technocrats at Brussels. The new leaders, as one European writer puts it, have no larger hope for humanity than to steer themselves safely through the treacherous waters that surround them. None among them, save Mr. Nixon apparently, even seems to be in search of personal charisma, a larger-than-life dimension. All this probably suits the great majority of hard-working, hard-playing Europeans very well. Implicit in a great deal of European philosophy is the concept that time is life, that human problems are only ameliorated, never solved, and that amelioration amounts to successful living. But it does not suit the minority of restless, questing youth, here any more than in America. Their positive alternatives are too vague to be very compelling so far, and have been since Marxism lost much of its hypothetical magic. But if, even subconsciously, they yearn for charismatic leaders again, and youth generally does, they may have quite a time to wait. Eric Severide, Paris.
And that's the way it is, Monday, August 11th, 1969. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
Prepare yourself for a little shock and some good news if you ever suffer from acid indigestion. This little tablet soothes and cools acid indigestion so effectively, it's hard to believe. It contains one of the most effective medicines ever discovered for acid indigestion. In tests at a famous college, it proved to neutralize excess acid in a matter of seconds. It worked so well, it's hard to believe. Prepared for a little shock? It's Tums, the medicine that's hard to believe till you take it. Tums. It'll make your stomach feel better. Now, available in peppermint and 4 more flavors.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. Wednesday, America pays tribute to astronauts Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins.